aprovecho para condenar de nuevo, desde el fondo de mi alma y de mis vísceras, al Estado de Israel. Maldito seas, Estado de Israel. Maldito sea. Terroristas y asesinos. Y viva el pueblo palestino. Pueblo heroico, pueblo bueno.
Let's go. What's up, everybody? Little throwback there with Hugo Chavez. Hope everybody's pumped for a power hour. I have not my normal camera, not my normal microphone. If things seem a little bit different, let me know. If the audio's good, should be all right. Let me see here. Yeah, it should be good. All right. That's my dog. Let's go. What's up, everybody? Lenin lives. Hell yeah. The reason I play the Hugo Chavez clip today is because Hugo Chavez was very likely a victim of U.S. biological warfare. Now, I got to be careful what I say here because we live in a Silicon Valley tech censorship regime, and that's considered a conspiracy theory here in America. But in Venezuela, it's very widely suspected or even believed or even known that the U.S. was utilized biological warfare to kill Hugo Chavez. There was a nurse who the Venezuelans wanted to investigate, who was one of Chavez's nurses suspected of poisoning him. And she was given asylum and refuge in the U.S. Very suspicious. But anyway, some of you know a little bit about me. I've had, when I was younger, I don't talk about this much because it is like, it was like a traumatic thing that like almost ruined my childhood in a lot of different ways and was really hard on my parents. But I got a long-term illness called chronic Lyme disease, which is very prominent in the Midwest. The prevalence of chronic Lyme is increasing year after year. I've studied it a lot as an adult. After years of having it as a kid and dealing with the medical systems, the American medical system's pathetic response to Lyme, I can't even describe to you how bad they are at treating Lyme, and this is like well known, even by like mainstream medical doctors. But there's been a strong push to cover up Lyme and prevent any Lyme disease treatment. And even there's been an effort to basically say that like Lyme disease isn't real. And the 500,000 people who suffer from chronic Lyme every single year, that's the number that it increases every year, is 500,000 people. They're all just making it up, right? Their symptoms are made up. This is something that establishment medical outlets have actually argued. And it never made sense to me, right? I'm like, why is their response to this specific ailment that has many different treatments that can be successful, not antibiotics or surgery, which is how the hospital systems make their money. But there are many different treatments in terms of diet, maybe using infrared saunas, like hot and cold therapy, all these things that are helpful and have been shown to help with Lyme disease, that the medical establishment considers to be quackery, right? They consider this to be way off the reservation. Oh, if you're not taking pills from the pharmaceutical industry, it's not real medicine. That's their position on it. But it never quite made sense to me. I'm like, why does this disease in particular get so either ignored by the medical establishment, or the medical establishment is writing articles telling you to ignore it because it's not real in the first place? What is it about Lyme disease? And then, thanks to Tucker Carlson and Jimmy Dore, I stumbled upon this book, Bitten, by Chris Newby. Now, I had done a lot of Lyme disease research before, but recently this theory has come out that Lyme disease, tick-ridden Lyme disease, which is how I got it from a deer tick. I got bit in the groin by a deer tick, and I got the bullseye rash, which is typical of Lyme disease, which was followed by symptoms like extreme fatigue, joint aches, Bell's palsy in the face. With my face, like if you look at pictures of me as a kid, I'm like this because my face is drooping from the Lyme. My joints were all swollen. I had extreme stomach issues for many years. At one point, it turned into like vomiting like 30 to 50 times a day. Crazy. My esophagus is still messed up from it. And what they're finding now is that almost surely, like after reading a good portion of this book, I'm like 99% sure that Lyme disease, tick-ridden Lyme disease, was invented by the U.S. as a bioweapon during the Cold War. and there was either a lab leak or through their testing, because they tested these biological weapons, these tick bombs. They would just drop bombs and ticks would fly out and infect the enemy. You know, they wanted to use it in Vietnam and Korea and against the Soviet Union potentially. They tested that in American forests, right? They tested that all over our country. They let these ticks out and then tested what they would do to animals. You know, but who's to say some of those ticks didn't get out or pass anything on and eventually infect Americans, which is what happened. And like I said, I've studied Lyme disease forever. If you look at the prevalence of the disease, it like started in a very isolated spot in America, very weird, kind of similar to COVID before, and it slowly expanded outwards. It was first found in Lyme, Connecticut, but at first the prevalence was only increasing in that area, and then it slowly kind of spread to Canada. But the growth in prevalence is exactly what you would expect if this were to be, you know, a biological weapon that leaked from a U.S. lab during the Cold War. It would start in one place and then slowly grow over time. And basically what I realized is that I, as a 5-year-old kid, before I even knew it, was a victim of U.S. imperialism and was a victim of U.S. biological weapons programs that infected millions of people in our country with this thing called chronic Lyme. And the reason why my family was never able to get any help for it, the reason my parents were put into a depression because their son was sick and the doctors kept telling us there was no answers, is because they don't want an answer, because they have to cover up the fact that they fucking made it. They have to cover up the fact that it was a fucking biological weapons program, so they don't want to treat the Americans who they infected. And the treatments that actually work for Lyme disease don't make a bunch of money for big pharma, so they have absolutely no reason to invest in Lyme disease treatment or even Lyme disease prevention. But you know who is doing Lyme disease prevention this year? You know who is going out and passing out tick repellent to hunters and fishermen in the Midwest who are the most at risk of getting Lyme disease? It's very common amongst outdoorsmen because obviously you're in the woods. The ACP Illinois chapter, before it was deer season, was out there giving tick repellent to hunters and doing more than our government and our medical system ever has, with an infinitesimal fraction of the resources that they have to combat this disease, which we now know was likely leaked from a U.S. biolab. So I'm glad that I have that in common with Hugo Chavez. I'm glad that I have that in common, that we were both victims of these bioweapons programs. And what's even more interesting is that the first country to be targeted and have these bioweapons tested on them was the island nation of Cuba in 1962. And do you know who founded Midwestern Marx with me? It was a Cuban by the name of Carlos Garrido, whose family had to flee Cuba under the terror and repression and biological warfare and economic warfare of the United States. So in a way, the U.S. government's bioweapons program helped create Midwestern Marx, which helped create the ACP, which is now going to take down the bastards who created this bioweapons program. They thought they were killing communism, but they actually lit a fire underneath the asses of people in America and turned them communist. So whoever made that bioweapons program, whoever was behind that, first of all, suck it. You thought you were beating communism and you ended up creating the Americans who are going to take down your capitalist system. And two, I'm going to have my revenge on you fuckers. I'm going to have my revenge on you for putting my parents into depression because they didn't know how to help their child. I'm going to have my revenge on you for missing my entire childhood and elementary education and all the sports and social interaction that my friends were doing that I wasn't able to do because I was at home dying of fucking chronic Lyme while the doctors told me it wasn't a real thing. I'm coming for you, Big Pharma. We are coming for you, not me. We, the ACP. And if you want to be a part of this war against the people who are poisoning our population and committing genocide abroad with our taxes instead of investing in helping our population recover and be more healthy, acp.us/join. That's my opening monologue. Thank you so much, comrade, for gifting 10 memberships. Let's go. Salute to you. Shout out to whoever gets those memberships. I'll interact with the chat more after the intro.
Sheriff Hazard is a hard man. what he can, for he's high sheriff hazard. He caught me one evening, and here's what he said: you look like a Russian, you look like a red, and if you're fond of your skin and your head, beware the high sheriff of hazard. The answer is simple, the answer is clear. We all get together, ain't got nothing to fear. We throw the old bastard right out on his ear. Farewell to High Sheriff Hazard.
All right. Sorry, I'm planning out some stuff this weekend. Got some people coming to my house to stay for a wedding. One of my best friends is getting married this weekend. Do commies have a sense of humor? Absolutely. Actually, our chairman, Haas doesn't get to relax much because he has to focus so much on the party. But when he is relaxed, which is rare, he's probably the funniest person I've ever met. No exaggeration. Beware the high bailiff of the ACP, Chris Halali. Absolutely. Halali's on an international trip right now. Hopefully he stays safe and gets some good work done. Many people with Lyme are told it's autoimmune disorder. Yes, they're told either it's autoimmune or irritable bowel syndrome, and they'll give you some laxatives and send you home. That's about it. Let's go. Eddie, are there any historical Marxist governments that you would consider authoritarian to the point where the people were put at disadvantage? Albania under Hoxha comes to mind. How so? Hoxha was a little bit of an ultra, but I think he was pretty based. I mean, usually when you have a Marxist-Leninist government that needed to assert tons of authority, it was because they were being, facing extreme repression. But I would say the closest are probably like the Shining Path and Pol Pot, the Khmer Rouge and the Shining Path. The Shining Path in Peru was never in power, but they were like ultra-left and violent. They had ultra-leftist, super violent elements that kind of tried to impose their rigid, dogmatic Marxist worldview onto the people rather than bringing the people along at their own pace. The Khmer Rouge and the Shining Path I would throw on there. Not that there's things that, nothing that we can learn from them. It's not like they, didn't have ideas that were interesting and, correct. But I would say the wielding of authority got out of control in those places, and it was used in a way that it shouldn't have been. So Haas is hilarious, truly. Big things happening at ACP soon. Absolutely. Every chapter. I'm here meeting with the Florida chapter right now in the boot, meeting with the Florida men. We've been able to travel around to every chapter. For the 1-year anniversary of the party, we've got something big coming. So stay tuned for that, folks. You're going to like it. The 1-year anniversary of the party. Just get yourselves ready. Trust me, it's going to be awesome. I've got a meeting about it tonight. By the way, speaking of the work of our ACP media team, somebody made a song using artificial intelligence. They turned one of Haz al-Din's recent tweets into a song. So enjoy that.
Communism is common sense. justice for the common man. Work for the common good. Fight for our common right.
Seize our stolen commonwealth. Generations of people fought for this and were killed by our capitalist government.
Government. Let's go. Oh, I see big things happening at ACP Iowa in specific soon. Also true, yes. We got a lot planned at ACP Iowa. I haven't been able to be as involved lately because the national level work has gotten so intense, which is good. That's how it should work. You know, I should be passing on the Iowa chapter work to people like Comrade PXE here. And I have full faith that they can do great things without me hovering over them. But yeah, a lot of exciting stuff going on in every chapter. Make sure that you guys get on board at acp.us. Bruh, AI? Yeah, why not? AI levels the playing field. AI puts tools at the disposal of the proletariat, of the working class, that allows them to produce very high quality content. It's only going to get better without a lot of money. So, and this is, Marxism 101, the development of the productive forces, the development of technology makes the existing relations of production appear as outdated and useless, which is what AI is doing, because we can automate so many jobs, but under capitalism, that just throws people into unemployment rather than allowing humanity to work less overall. So AI could liberate humanity, but under capitalism, it's actually throwing humanity into worse conditions, throwing people into unemployment by taking their jobs. And this is one of the core contradictions of the capitalist relations of production, that it tends towards automation, but it doesn't utilize that automation to make it so that we have to work less, which, common sense would dictate if you're able to automate more labor, then people should have to work less. But that's not how it works, because they're trying to extract every last dime out of us in order to maximize shareholder profits and stuff. So the AI technology, I know it can be scary and stuff, and a lot of leftists like, Noam Chomsky and whatever seem to be against it and scared of it. But, that's how every technological advancement has been in human history. There were always people who were against it. There were always people saying we need to conserve the old. We need to prevent these technological advancements. And not only is that anti-Marxist, but it's anti-history, right? Technology is going to advance. There's no slowing technology. It's a matter of how we utilize that technology and how we use it. And the ACP is using AI to produce high quality content in order to organize people and grow our party. But also AI could be used by society, like I said, to automate a lot of jobs and make it so people have to work less. But yeah. Why use AI today? Why not wait for communism? Why would we shoot ourselves in the foot? That would be like saying, let's not use social media to reach people, even though we have social media and it's a tool at our disposal, even though everybody gets their news from social media, because it's a new form of technology that I don't like, we're not going to use it. That would just be shooting ourselves in the foot. We have to use every piece of technology, every resource, every weapon at our disposal as the working class to fight the ruling class. You have to look at it like a war, right? That's what the class struggle is. It's a class war. And if, we're, because of moral or individualistic ethical reasons, if we're not using new technologies that we have at our fingertips to help wage that struggle, to help fight that battle, we're just shooting ourselves in the foot for no reason, and that's Marxism has always been about embracing the new technologies and what they can do for humanity. It's actually capitalism's great role in history is increasing the productive forces in a lot of places, not the places targeted by imperialism so much. But Noam Chomsky is scared of his own shadow. He is. Why not wait for communism? Yeah, there is no waiting for communism. We have to fight for communism. Right? We're not waiting for communism. We're fighting for communism. Communism isn't going to come about, by just waiting it out. It's going to come about through a struggle, which will culminate in the victory of the working class. And we need to use whatever tools we can. So, yeah, good questions. Good questions. That's an interesting topic. Colorado is always busy. Yeah, Colorado's doing great work too. It was really cool. I got to meet with a bunch of the Florida people yesterday. They drove from all around the state to meet up and have some Korean barbecue. But it's amazing to see how the chapter's grown, and how the individuals within the chapter have grown personally, grown as leaders. The chapter executive there is doing a really good job. And there's all these new people, these new competent, hardworking people getting to work on the ground. And it's just cool to see that growth firsthand, and, how our work can evolve because of that. We're actually doing a rally this Sunday in Florida. I won't be able to make it because they have that wedding I mentioned earlier. But they're having a rally in front of the French embassy for Ibrahim Traore. How sick is that, Ibrahim Traore? We're going to be waving the ACP banners. We're going to be waving the Jose Marti Youth banners, which is an organization started by some Florida comrades here who joined the ACP recently. So Chomsky is a true liberal. He showed that during COVID. Yeah, I mean, anarchism's always been. Shout out to Harold for paying for dinner. Absolutely. Anarchism's always been individualistic. If you listen to Chomsky talk about U.S. imperialism, it sounds fairly brilliant. And then you listen to him talk about Leninism and the USSR, and you're like, oh my goodness, I feel like I'm listening to George Bush. I feel like I'm listening to Hitler. Yeah. Jose Marti Youth in the house. Let's go. Shout out to the Jose Marti Youth. Bunch of badasses. Speaking of which, check this out, everybody. We recently started working on ACP Music as a subdivision of the ACP Media team run by yours truly. And I won't be running the music team because I am an amateur guitar player and I don't know anything about music. But we do have some serious musicians in the party. Add this to your Spotify.
You promise.
Sometimes I feel like Karl Marx, but that would be dogmatic. Sipping all this drink, I just spilled it on my fabric. If you have that knowledge, then you know you need to praxis. Red book on my lap, you could never catch me lacking. Sometimes I feel like Karl Marx, but that would be dogmatic. Sipping all this drink, I just spilled it on my fabric. If you have that knowledge, then you know you need to. Red book on my lap, you can never catch me lacking. I don't worship idols, man, that shit just be so corny. I be with the masses cause the risk is be so boring. I be on the internet whenever I feel lonely, and I rather feel like Che Guevara than ever be Tony. Tell my mama when I grow, oh sorry I'm a communist. Take a flight to Cuba, roll up, blow right in that bit. All up in Jamaica, swear you need to see this shit. She don't wear no makeup, wanna give me all of it. We should.
Wait, do we have Ben Shapiro in the chat right now? That's not music. Rap music ain't music. That's the reason black people are poor, is the rap music. I'm very cool and people like me at parties when I tell them that rap isn't real music. Remember when they were saying that to Lil Uzi Vert and every multi-millionaire rapper now?
Take like all of it. We should take like all of it. Careful who you talk to, cause they fed and they be counterfeit. I switched out the AR for the AK like a Soviet. Say I get her high like some opiates. Sometimes I feel like Karl Marx, but that would be dogmatic. Sipping all this drink, I just spilled it on my fabric. If you have that knowledge, then you know you need to. Red book on my lap, you can never catch me lacking. Sometimes I feel like Karl Marx, but that would be dogmatic. Sipping all this drink, I just spilled it on my fabric. If you have that knowledge, then you know you need to praxis. Red book on my lap, you can never catch me lacking.
Based. I love it. He's got a good voice too. Like, not everybody can do the mumble rap. I don't even know what that term means. The term mumble rap is so cringe. It's just music. But he's got a good voice for that. You know, he sounds like it's like deep and distinct. It's like the ACP Pop Smoke. It's not that much like Pop Smoke, but yeah, check him out. Treasy is his name. Red book on my lap. You could never catch me lacking. ACP making hits, LOL. Yeah, I want to do, because I've always thought that the Power Hour should have its own introduction, and should have its own music and should have its own intro. That's why I changed out the intro. It's different. Like the starting soon thing, it's different for the Power Hour than it is for the other streams. And I want each stream to be branded sort of distinctly. Like you probably noticed that Noah's stream recently has its own graphics and its own like little clips that we play. So I want to start doing that for all the streams. Increase our production value on here. And then, by the way, not all are calling for the re-establishment. What? Oh, I'm from Libya, I see. Yo, what up? How's it going? In Libya, there's many people calling for the restoration of the pre-1969 revolution monarchy because how unstable the government has been since Gaddafi was deposed by NATO. Your thoughts? Yeah, obviously I wouldn't support that. But it makes sense because the people just want a state. Like Libya, the U.S., like in Iraq, the reason why the U.S. ended up occupying Iraq, even though they said it was going to be like a month-long war, literally, they said that when they were selling the war to the public. They'll be like, we'll be in and out. It'll be like a month-long. Okay, but the reason they ended up occupying Iraq is because once Saddam was taken out, there was nobody to keep a hold on all these extremist groups, and they started fighting each other in a civil war to seize power. Kind of like in Afghanistan when the U.S. left, the Taliban took power. In Iraq, it was chaos, just like Libya. So the U.S. ended up occupying Iraq and basically becoming the state, right? The U.S. is the state now. It's like a colony. But in Libya, they had no exit plan, right? They didn't occupy Libya. They took out the government and left. So the country had no state. They had no central government. It was just a bunch of terrorists and slave traders running around fighting each other to see who would be in charge, right? So the people there long for stability. They long for good statecraft, right? What is statecraft? The use of the state, the use of the government to uplift the people, to take care of the country, to make the country stable. A country like Iran is a non-Marxist-Leninist country that has used statecraft successfully. A country like Singapore, right? They're capitalist, but they've utilized statecraft and state central planning of the economy, but we're using the term statecraft right now, to build up their economy, bring people out of poverty, invest in new jobs, invest in new infrastructure, invest in education. It's what Traoré is doing in Burkina Faso right now, right? And we have no concept of good statecraft in the U.S. because nothing our state has done for the last 60 to 80 years has been good for the workers, right? Not since like Medicaid and Medicare and Social Security. So we've kind of like lost that concept of good statecraft, but you know, if you're living in a society with no state, with no central government, you're going to long for any kind of government, any kind of state. Someone bring order. Someone get rid of these sex traffickers. Somebody get rid of these gangs and jihadist groups who are trying to take over the country, who are, you know, who have all seized different parts of the country and are fighting each other all the time, taking civilians captive and selling civilians into slavery to make money. Literally, there was a Libyan slave trade after the U.S. left. Why? Because they didn't have a government. They didn't have a state. Who's going to crack down on the slave trade? Hillary Clinton just took out your president. Hillary Clinton just took out your state. And by the way, it was Hillary who pushed the hardest for that intervention, who pushed Obama at every turn to invade Libya, that evil, evil witch of a woman. Yeah. Capitalists with common sense. That's kind of what Singapore is. They're like, we're capitalists, but we looked at what China's doing and we want to do some of that too. Is Varoufakis a true anti-capitalist? Nah. He's a social democrat, reformist, establishment, just a smart, intelligent establishment guy. But he does have that one really good China clip. I also think the concept of techno-feudalism is not great. Where is it? Did they take this off the internet? You can't find it on YouTube anymore. You should be able to find it right away. I gotta shut my notifications off here. We need wrestling communism. Red Gym soon, comrade. Verifocus is defending China's model of socialism. Yeah, he can be super based. Listen, I don't hate the guy, but he's like, supportive of a two-state solution. I'm pretty sure he condemned October 7th. He made some tweet about MAGA communism, and he lives in fucking Greece. It's like, quit telling us how to do communism in America. You live in Greece. You're greasy, okay? But, here's the video. YouTube must have Google buried this video. This is a good Giannis moment, based Giannis moment. Just bumping Treasy. Yeah, we were.
And sort of we have transferred so much money from our economy over to China by buying all those things and supporting their economy over there so they could make more and more money. They are now all over Africa, buying things and investing over there.
This shit is so funny, dude. Listening to her try and explain why China's bad. She's like, they're buying things. They're investing in infrastructure. Oh, no. Oh, great heavens. As if Belgium didn't do a genocide in the Congo in the last century to steal all of their wealth. But oh no, China's buying things and investing in infrastructure as the rest of Africa is being robbed blind by the IMF and the World Bank. The Michigan chapter is doing some awesome stuff right now. ACP in its way to building dual power is on its way. Yes, absolutely, Joey. Couldn't agree more. Thank you so much, comrade. Joey has been doing amazing work with the ACP. I can't say enough about how great Joey has been since joining the party. It really gives, all of us a sense of purpose and a sense of collective belonging. And I know the left can't just be a social club, right? And it's fine if you don't get along with everybody in your chapter because we're professionals, right? We're working together for something, even if we don't get along personally. But it is nice because you meet a lot of friends through the party. You have that social connection. You have a support system and in a economic system that deprives you of that. And it gives you more purpose. So, acp.us/join, especially if you're in Michigan, because you're going to have one of the best executives in the entire country. Thank you, Joey.
And getting those countries dependent on them and supporting, non-democratic people. And I'm just
like
wondering,
whom?
Well,
we are in a country that supports Saudi Arabia.
Yes, that's true. Right.
Sorry, I keep getting sidetracked. ACP running for Congress. Eventually we'll start doing stuff like that. But we want to make sure that we can actually win, right? We don't just want to run for office to run. We aren't interested in electoral politics at the moment. Exactly. We have to build dual power first, right? We have to grow our numbers first. Once we have, entire blocks controlled in various cities, which we're on our way to doing that in a few cities, like controlling the entire block with ACP people and even ACP small business owners. But once we start doing stuff like that and we can really launch a serious campaign on the ground, then we will. But at the moment, no. Thank you, PXC.
So suddenly we have a problem with, superpower supporting non-democratic people.
Yes, yes, I do, but I also am just concerned that we've sort of created the economic power that China sort of has now, and they're using it, I fear, going to be using it against us eventually and against the better interests of a lot of people.
Allow me to put your mind to rest.
Okay, great.
You shouldn't worry about that.
Okay.
It's very simple. And let me explain why you shouldn't worry about it. But please continue.
Well, they're in Africa.
Listen to her try and explain what China's doing wrong. This is like what happens when you cause people to confront their biases about China or the DPRK. They'll be like, these countries are evil, right? And you'll be like, okay, why? And they'll be like, well, they're in Africa. human rights, buying and investing, it's not good. They can't explain why. And then you explain the truth about these countries and people are just at a loss. Like, oh, I guess I have no idea what's going on in the world. People are so stupid they don't know China has a non-aggression policy. Exactly. They're like, I've explained this a million times on the stream, so I won't go into depth right now. But China is not even the Soviet Union, right? The Soviet Union was explicitly saying we are a base of support for the global revolution, right? That wasn't Trotsky. His idea of permanent revolution was nothing. It was just a bunch of gobbledygook and gibber. Right? This is like Stalin and Lenin saying we are the base of operations for global revolution and we're going to back revolutionary movements all around the world. And Russia to this day is still doing that, right? Russia is backing Ibrahim Traore in Africa and giving them weapons and support and helping transport them to Moscow for meetings. Right, so Russia is still kind of following in that tradition of the Soviet Union during the Cold War of we're going to fund revolutionary movements and support revolutionary movements around the world to make the world more communist and more favorable towards us. But China doesn't do that. China has a policy of complete non-interventionism. China says we will not meddle in your politics. Right? We will engage in trade based upon the principle of mutual development, right? We scratch your back, you scratch ours, right? It has to be a mutually beneficial trade. And we're not going to give money to certain political groups. We're going to stay out of it and let your country do whatever they want and let us do whatever we want, right? That's the approach that they've taken. It's an extremely non-imperialist, non-interventionist way to approach things. And they could be far more interventionist. They could be shipping weapons to the PFLP. They could be shipping weapons to, Africa and doing what Russia's doing. And they are like, they engage in trade and sell weapons to countries. They sell military equipment to countries like Pakistan, who recently embarrassed India with their Chinese equipment. But they're not explicitly doing it for political reasons. They're doing it for, monetary trade reasons. So to say that China is imperialist is ridiculous. You could make more of an argument that the Soviets were imperialist.
Lending money to countries to build ports and different infrastructure.
To build what?
Port.
And what's wrong with that?
And because
countries that need ports.
But somehow Americans are now likely to support Russia. Makes you think. Right. When Russia doesn't call themselves communist, Americans are on board with it. When Russia's doing communist things but not calling it communism, MAGA Americans are like, hell yeah, brother. That's why we just have to break down that barrier in their heads. Give them dialectical materialism so they can realize that they're preventing themselves from accepting the truth, what they know implicitly to be the truth, which is that class struggle is the only way forward. Deng Xiaoping was based along with Zhao and
Get ports.
Absolutely.
But they're making people dependent on, I know it's the same thing that we've done, which is
no, it's not.
Around the world.
They are far more humanistic than the United States ever was.
Really? Okay.
Absolutely.
Great. So
let me give you an example. Of course, they are peddling for influence.
Yeah.
Yeah. But they are non-interventionist, absolutely non-interventionist in a way that Europeans, the West, has never managed to fathom.
But I have a feeling they have a longer term thought process that is more interventionist.
Right. But anyway, let's judge what we see. Let's judge what. Okay. Wait, let's start at the beginning. The Chinese never asked Apple to go to Shenzhen and produce all the iPhones.
Hopefully she's right. Hopefully they do have a long-term plan to start giving a bunch of funding and support to Ibrahim Traore and to cut off all support to Israel. Hopefully she's right and they are going to start doing that. Personally, I love China. I think what their foreign policy is perfect for them, right? It was brilliant, this non-interventionist policy based on mutual development. But I've been clear that if China started doing Soviet-style policy and they started funding revolutionary movements all over the world, I'd love to see it.
It was Steve Jobs that decided that. Yeah? Mm-hmm. It was not China that went to Washington, D.C. and demanded that they buy a third of your national debt. If they hadn't bought it, you would be in serious trouble. Mm-hmm. Okay. Number 3, I did allude to this in my talk. If in 2008 China had not cranked up their credit bubble, you would be in a new Great Depression now. Mm-hmm. So China, the United States, and the European Union are absolutely synergistic, and they need one another in a way that if we fail to acknowledge and to nurture, billions of people, including the majority of the people in this country, are going to suffer. Now, I am not going to stand here and defend China and the Chinese Communist Party. I already made some negative remarks about the Chinese Communist Party.
There you go, folks. There's why Yanis Varoufakis isn't great. Sure, China's non-interventionist. Sure, China has the most successful statecraft and the most successful economic system in the world, but I don't support them because of my human rights. Okay, sure.
Referring to, their attitudes as being compatible with those of Wolfgang Schäuble.
What the fuck? He just said their attitude's compatible with Hitler. What? Brother, what? Brother, what? What? What are you talking about? Hitler tried to conquer the world. You just said China's non-interventionist. There's a hole in your brain called liberal democracy, and it prevents you from being fully based.
My concern about China is the authoritarian manner in which the Chinese regime is treating the Chinese people as a democrat.
And no evidence. No evidence, right? Just like Xi had no evidence for China's interventionism, he has no evidence of, their authoritarianism in the abstract, as if, every government doesn't wield authority, as if China's government doesn't wield way less authority, especially globally, than the US government. It's wild.
I have a problem with this. Mind you, I have to tell you that, from my understanding of China, it's a very interesting social experiment, in the sense that at the local level, or the regional level, you now have a boisterous democracy at the local and regional level, with popular.
And this is what's obviously Giannis flamed that girl, that lady. But look at this. He shared a Guardian article, the corporate rag known as The Guardian, which everybody knows is no longer a left-wing anti-establishment paper, but a paper that publishes pro-establishment narratives. Giannis reposted them to attack Jackson and Haas, to attack our homies who are going around the anti-imperialist world and emboldening people, fighting against Zionism and imperialism, who are emboldening Americans to stand up and fight against their own state, against their own system, and implement something better. But because he thinks that's authoritarianism and we want to be like China, which is authoritarian, quote unquote, he has to retweet a corporate propaganda article about us. So that's why I'm not a huge fan. But that video is pretty good. That's enough Giannis for today. That's enough Giannis forever. Just go away. Authority is good. I agree. I don't know how far I would have made it in wrestling without a coach, but certainly not as far as I did. Authority is good. You just need someone who knows how to wield authority. You need to have good people in those positions. Honorable people. Admirable people who you want to replicate and be like, who lead by example, not just by telling you what to do. There's no such thing as libertarian governance. Government is just one class of imposing its will on all other classes. Thank you, Joey. I appreciate the $5. Exactly right. And I mean, Engels destroyed anarchism and libertarianism on his lunch break one day. He wrote this book on authority. It's like 3 pages long, or pamphlet. But it basically makes the argument Joey's making right here. And it's so true. And also the argument that there's a certain level of authority that's imposed on humanity by nature, by the need to produce our means of subsistence and reproduce ourselves, right? If we don't produce food, then all of humanity will starve, right? So for Marx, picking an apple off of a tree is an act of production. You're producing the food that humanity needs to survive, and humanity has always needed to produce in order to survive. So this is, a sort of authoritarianism that's imposed upon humanity and society itself by nature, the authority of nature, the authority of material needs. And technology helps us to overcome these needs and produce enough for everybody with more and more ease. But there's always, there has to be some authority in the workplace. You have to organize things in some way. And this is what the anarchists don't understand. 3 pages to destroy all of anarchism. That's really all it takes. I never had an anarchist phase. I don't know about you guys. I had a social democrat phase with the Bernie campaign, but I never had an anarchist phase. I always thought it was the dumbest shit I ever heard of. No offense. It's just like, how long have you been interacting with humans if you think that humans can have a completely decentralized revolution that'll work and be able to function and run society? Like, what are we talking about here? Authority is an inescapable part of nature. Of course. But like, our current system has a what would you call it? A authority structure that makes no sense. Right? It's people like Bill Gates and Warren Buffett, Wall Street shareholders, the people who are best at investing and gambling and using their vast wealth to create more wealth. Those are the people at the top of the food chain. And then beneath them, it's the managerial class who they hire to enforce their desires on the working class. And then, of course, you have the petty bourgeoisie and the lumpen and whatever. But the people in authority are often the most incompetent people. A lot of the farmland is owned by Bill Gates. Do you think Bill Gates has ever worked on a farm a day in his life? The hell does Bill Gates know about food production? The hell does he know about farming? Yet he's at the top of the food chain in our system. It's an authority structure that's completely backwards. The people who work the land should own the land and should be in charge of organizing the farming. It should be a collectivized agricultural system. That's simply what works the best. I got to go grab a drink of water after this. I'm steaming hot here in Florida. I'm not used to that. Thank you, Michelle, for gifting that membership. Appreciate you. And thank you for being a member. If you're a Midwestern Marx member, make sure that you check out the perks that come with it. You get like different emojis. You get a copy of Carlos's book, The Purity Fetish. You get a lot of stuff. So become a member now. And thank you for gifting all the memberships today, comrades. What was I saying earlier? I don't even remember. I'm too hot. I had an anarchist phase for like 3 weeks, and then I turned 16. Yeah, I relate. Let me play some Treasy for you guys while I get a drink of water here. Gosh, it is so hot in Florida, folks. It is so hot. Let's play Stalinist.
That's that socialism. That's that socialism, baby.
That's that socialism,
Put my shades when I walk out the house. They know who I am, so I gotta watch out. Keep it on my hips so they know what I'm about. I'm just chilling this whatever, make the whole trap bounce. Make a commune bounce. Drag the lot around. I'm at the lot right now. If you run up, it's man down. If you run up, it's man down. I ain't never scared, I walk all around my town. You have never read Karl Marx, you're a clown. Talking like you know and you should really shut your mouth. To have a revolution, need the black and the brown. And the white too, then on to next round. Socialist forever and I'm never in doubt. Sit back, baby, keep my feet on the couch. Said that he's a fan and I told him join the horde. American patriot, I love driving any Ford. JMY, I think we need an award. Pass me the slip, put me in to record. I just spilled all this damn money on the floor. I'm a nigga, so I really think I need some more. I'm a Stalinist, that's why they be at my door. Revolution now, we're not only anti-war. Make the whole trap bounce. Make the commune bounce. Drag the lot around. I'm at the lot right now. Make the whole trap bounce. Make the commune bounce. Drag the lot around. I'm at the lot right now. Yeah, man, that's our socialism, baby. That's our socialism, baby. That Kim Il-sung, that's Stalin. Hey, man, shout out Dade County, shout out South Florida, shout out Miami, shout out Broward, shout out Little Haiti, Liberty City, man.
That one might be my favorite. It's that socialism, baby. Yes, if you're in the Florida area, come to our event on Sunday. Going to be protesting in favor of Ibrahim Traore and the revolution in Burkina Faso. So, eco boost, baby. Let's go. Let's go. How does freeing the proletariat free the other classes? Great question. I mean, you have classes like the lumpen proletariat who are like criminals, drug dealers, gangs, you know, things like that. And they are produced by capitalism, right? Because capitalism forces people to work for their means of subsistence. There are going to be people who are willing to steal and do crime and engage in black market activities in order to get those means of subsistence. So under socialism, you crack down on the narcotics trafficking, you crack down on, you know, the sex trafficking, the prostitution rings, which are facilitated and kept going by our government, if you're not aware. The government and the DEA pretend to be cracking down on these things, but coincidentally, every Latin American country that the DEA goes to ends up seeing an increase in drug trafficking because the DEA is not actually there to stop it. They're facilitating it. A lot of the time that happens because of corruption and because it's in the U.S.'s interest to facilitate the black market trade for various reasons. So you have that, which, you know, can kind of just go away and everybody can have the chance to work a productive job. You know, you don't have to work 40 plus hours a week. You can just work a handful of hours and still make ends meet and have time to do more fulfilling things. There's a reason every time socialism goes away, crime goes up, and every time socialism comes in, crime goes way down. So the lumpen proletariat can kind of just fade away or be shrunk down to a very small size. The bourgeoisie, Karl Marx talks a lot about this. The capitalist class, like, yes, capitalism enriches them, but it also fills them with anxiety. Right? They constantly need to exploit, expand, accumulate. Otherwise, they get outcompeted and they go under. Right? So it creates all this anxiety. It forces them to be the most selfish kind of person, the kind of person who cares way more about their corporate job than about their own family, their kids. Right? That's the kind of life that capitalism and being a capitalist incentivizes you to live, a selfish, money-hungry life. And it has this negative effect on the capitalists themselves. So if they were able to actually be working class, if they were able to be members of society, not above society, exploiting the shit out of it so they can sail away on a yacht every week, it would actually lead to more fulfilling lives for them. A lot of that anxiety would be taken away. And they would feel more fulfilled because they would be engaging in productive labor, which is life's prime want. And, you know, not just that, but like hobbies and stuff, skill development. This is what being a human is all about. And that's what capitalism takes away from both the capitalist and the worker. And the other thing is that the proletariat is the vast majority of society, right? The vast majority of society doesn't own capital. They work for a living. They sell their labor on the market. And that's true for, you know, the service industry, but also, of course, the industrial, real proletariat at the base of society. And their overthrowing of the capitalist class liberates all the classes. It allows, you know, all the people in these service jobs to automate those jobs and do things that are more productive and have more free time instead of doing the demeaning act of putting the fries in the bag, right? And handing people fries over a greasy stove all day. We have a robot do that, and you can go, you know, work at a factory 2 hours a week and then pursue hobbies the rest of the time. And, you know, of course, because of where technology's at, we can still produce enough for everybody. Quite easily, actually. The U.S. produces enough food to feed the entire world, but we just throw all of it away as 2 million people starve every year. Oh, it's so irrational. But anyways, yeah, the liberating the proletariat liberates the whole of society, including the capitalists. So if you know a rich capitalist, tell them, you know, you wouldn't have to be so anxious all the time, and you wouldn't have to exploit your workforce if you would join the ACP and fund the ACP with all your money. Things exist in motion. The resistance continues, but Syria's fall has set back the resistance against Zionism another decade, if not more. True. True. Very pertinent analysis. I know some people who kind of tried to brush it off as not a big deal or not a big defeat, right? Or the axis of resistance is still winning. This isn't a big blow to them. No, it is a big blow to them. Syria was vital to the axis of resistance. Raisi was vital to the axis of resistance. Lebanon and Hezbollah were, and the only people who are like still fighting full force are the Houthis in Yemen, because they have nothing to lose. They've already been decimated by the Saudis for the last decade with U.S. weapons. And of course, the Palestinians. So October 7th definitely woke people up all across the world, right? It had because people go back and forth debating whether October 7th was worth it or not for the Palestinians. And the level that it elevated consciousness in the West, I don't know if they could have predicted, but I think it's been, incredible. So many people are aware of what's going on in Palestine and the history of this region who weren't aware of it before. Right? So many people have turned against Israel, and now the U.S. State Department is trying to turn that into Nazism instead of communism. But so many people overall, including very high-profile people like Candace Owens, have turned against Israel and gotten fired from their corporate jobs for doing so, and have brought a bunch of new people into the alt media sphere, have gotten a bunch of new people to start questioning outlets like the Daily Wire. So it's elevated consciousness very much, but at the same time, it's provoked a genocide from Israel and Gaza, and it's provoked the destruction of Syria. It provoked the, almost destruction of Hezbollah and Lebanon. It's provoked a bunch more attacks against Yemen, of course. So it's provoked Israel to lash out against the axis of resistance, and now they're calling for a war with Iran. They're very mad that Trump doesn't want to invade Iran. So the resistance continues, absolutely. The axis of resistance will recover. This is, basic dialectics. A step back leads to 2 steps forward, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. History moves in zigzags, not just in a straight line. But it's absolutely a serious setback. So, glory to the Houthis and the Palestinians. I don't know what I can say on YouTube, but you might get me banned there, but you know how I feel about that statement in my heart. Sinwar woke up the international revolution, even if the axis of resistance has taken a step back. Exactly. That's how I see it. And, when it comes to the Palestinians themselves, what other choice did they have but to wake up a global revolution? And that's, Palestine's always sort of been like the heart of the anti-imperialist world. There's no easier argument to make for an anti-imperialist, and this has been true. I've been an anti-imperialist, pushing anti-imperialist politics for the last 6-7 years. There's no easier case to make than the case for Palestine and the case against Israel. What they're doing is so brazen, so mask off evil, right, that it sort of opens people's eyes or lets you see a microcosm of what imperialism does as a whole. Right, the amount of devastation and genocide and mass murder and exploitation that's been enforced by capitalist imperialism all across the world, we're able to see that in this very small area on this ridiculous scale in Palestine. So it's woken people's eyes up to what's going on generally, what's going on with our system as a totality, because they're able to see this extreme example. Did everyone see Theo Von make a statement, by the way? Check this out. Zionists are so mad about this. For those who don't know, I love Theo Von. He's not perfect, obviously, but he's one of my favorite comedians. I think he's very down to earth. I think he's pro-working class.
I'd like to let you.
He is anti-imperialist. I think he senses that, a lot of his fans are probably former Bernie people like me, but also Trump people and MAGA people. Because he's a populist, right? He sides with the workers, and he understands that MAGA captures a lot of pro-worker energy, and Bernie captures a lot of pro-worker energy, and he doesn't care about the culture war bullshit so much. So that's why I like him. He often has working class people on his show just to talk about their jobs. But he didn't delete it, did he? If he deleted it, I'm going to cry. Did he delete it? What the hell? Where'd it go?
So Theo Von is one of the Rogan Bro comedians who, I got to be honest, I feel like he's gotten away largely unscathed with the sort of reaction that the other.
I don't want to listen to Kyle. Sorry, Kyle. I just want to see Theo.
It's just people like that, So
bringing back
it feels to me
teaching Marxism to Kyle. Everyone remember that?
Consequences of being in that Rogan sphere. And I think we covered it, but Theo Von was crying over Gaza in an interview with Gabor Mate. And clearly it was impacting him, and he keeps thinking about those kids who are being killed. Well, here he talks about it again. I want to play it for you, and then I want to react to it. Here we go.
And I just think it feels to me.
Parapolitical nerds are calling him fake. Yeah, and that's so stupid. Because it's so not fake. He's not a political nerd, but he sees children being killed, and he's like, I have to speak out about this. I have to say something. All right, it's absolutely from the heart. It's as real and authentic as it possibly could be. I think he might have deleted the video, though, it just said. No, it's there? Okay, good. Thank God. Thank God he didn't back down.
Yeah. I don't know if it feels to me like it's a genocide that's happening while we're alive here in front of our lives. And I don't, sometimes I feel like I should say something. I'm not a geologist or geographer or anything like that, so I don't know a lot of some of it I do know, though. Like, I know the basics of the issues over there, but for me, it's just like how I feel like you see all these photos of people, just children, women, people, body parts, just people like putting their kids back together. And I just can't believe that we're watching that and that more isn't said about it. And so I'm not saying anyone else needs to say anything, but I think I'm just that more isn't said about it by me. So I just, I want to be able to speak up about that I think we're watching probably like, one of the sickest things that's ever happened.
Yep. Spitting. So shout out to Theo for doing that. I know it's a big risk, especially in Hollywood, to be anti-Zionist, but that has a broad effect. 99.99% of my audience is already anti-Zionist, right? So I can reach new people and stuff. But Theo, who has a massive audience of people who maybe don't know anything about Zionism, him coming out and speaking out about it has such a large effect on the consciousness of people in the country. These podcasters and comedians like Rogan really have a large effect on the way a lot of Americans think. So for him to be coming out against the genocide is pretty great, even if it's not, the most politically informed take. Eddie, what do you have to say to those who are worried you bleach your hair like Kyle? I don't do it nonstop, and I don't do it for looks. I did it once because my wrestler placed at state, and he dyed his hair, and I told him if he placed, I'd also dye my hair with him. I don't do it to impress my liberal, wealthy wife who turned me into a liberal cook. Sorry, Kyle. No, you're good. That was hilarious. What the hell was I going to say? Oh, yeah. We should bring this up. This isn't the funnest topic, but everybody should know what our enemies are up to and boost this so people can know the truth. But a thread was recently published by the great talent site of ACP, who put out a thread about the ACP Leaks account run by a guy named Andrew Saturn, which is dedicated to wrecking the ACP full time, right? Even though there are open fascists on Twitter posting like Nazi edits and memes of Hitler and unironically supporting Hitler, these people feel like they need to attack the American Communist Party, not those actual neo-Nazis and actual white nationalists. And they have made up some of the most insane lies, including collaborating with fascist sex traffickers to try and accuse the ACP of having those same fascist sex traffickers in our organization. Just lie after lie after lie, and I can't wait to see these people in court. These people who said that Anna and Rachel Siegel and these Nazis were a part of our fucking organization when they never were. And in fact, we have proof in this thread that ACP leaks themselves were working together with these disgusting sex trafficking, child grooming Nazis while projecting their own crimes onto us. Okay, so everybody go like and retweet this thread. Do everything that you can to boost it. Send it around. Debunks all of the nonsense about our party in one quick thread. Shows you who these people are who are attacking us full time. I mean, this guy, Andrew Saturn, calls me a LaRoucheite. Like, people know I don't know shit about LaRouche. I've never read LaRouche. I've never had anything to do with Schiller or LaRouche. I think Jose Vega is cool. He's connected to LaRouche, but that's all I really know about it. But this guy says that I'm like a secret disciple of Lyndon LaRouche, and all I think about is Lyndon LaRouche and blah, blah, blah. I have no idea what the hell the dude's talking about. He is completely delusional, lives in his mom's basement, just typing this shit up in a complete fantasy world in every single way. But anyways, there's a picture of him with Daniel Burke, who's one of the head LaRouche people. He's got a picture of him at an event with this LaRouche guy. So it's like, you're more connected to LaRouche than I've ever been in my life, dumbass. But that's how these people lie. You know, it's just pure projection. They'll just throw shit at the wall to see what sticks. They're not worried about being sued for defamation, which they're going to be. They have no soul, so they're not worried about lying and, you know, how wrong it is to just spread public lies about other people and how disgusting of a person that makes you. But, I mean, and this proves it. I mean, this guy, Andrew Saturn right here, is willing to collaborate with literal sex trafficking neo-Nazis because he thinks he's fighting fascism by trying to wreck the ACP. I mean, it doesn't get more pathetic than this man, if you can even call him that. I don't know if he has any humanity left in him. But make sure you go boost this thread. It's very good, well put together by Talent Site. Shout out to him. Make sure you give him a follow. The moment I learned he was a journalist, it all made sense. I mean, yeah, and I've talked to people from the Green Party. If you talk to any people from any organization that Andrew Saturn was in, they will all tell you he's a wrecker. They will all tell you he's a Fed or he's so mentally ill that he's incapable of being in an organization. Every single org he's been in has either tossed him out or he's quit and tried to wreck. That is what he does. He is a professional wrecker and very likely, you know, some kind of asset. He's like a COINTELPRO asset. And if he's not, he serves that purpose anyways. I hope he's getting paid by the CIA to do what he does, right? Otherwise, he's just doing their work for free. He's acting as a CIA agent for free, doing the same shit that the CIA did, like collaborating with sex trafficking Nazis to try and attack communists. So that's that guy. If you want to know where... And what's unfortunate is a lot of the negative narratives about the ACP stem from that guy. They stem from this schizophrenic fat guy in his mom's basement posting shit that just sounds negative about the ACP, regardless of if it's true or not, collaborating with Nazis to try and create smears, fabricate smears against the ACP. That's what a lot of leftists are quoting and promoting. They're promoting these fascist sex traffickers to attack a communist party, and they think that that's fighting fascism. Really? So you're aligned with the neo-Nazis, the actual neo-Nazis who will tell you that they're neo-Nazis and wave neo-Nazi flags, the people who we have on recording in this thread grooming children. You're collaborating with those people to attack communists, and you think you're fighting fascism? Bitch, you are the fascist. That's why we call the Social Democrats social fascists. This is the role you've always played. Just like the Social Democrats who collaborated with the Freikorps, the right-wing German forces who a lot of them would later become the Nazis, or the Nazi military forces. They collaborated with the Social Democrats to kill Rosa Luxemburg and Karl Liebknecht, Friedrich Engels' like nephew or whatever he was. They were related somehow, but they were communist leaders in Germany, and they were the Social Democrats gave their location to the fascists, collaborated with them to take them out, and that's the same thing these people are doing today. Except we're not going to let them take us out. Yeah, I'll be damned if some basement dweller like Andrew Saturn is able to affect my life and what I'm trying to build, or what we're trying to build collectively. That's all right, Jenny. That's all right. Whatever. They're longtime friends, I think. I'll always like Garland. Garland's a G. He can be friends with whoever he wants. That's how far I take the cancel culture stuff. You can even have Danny Shaw on your show and I won't cancel you. True. Yeah. I mean, I'd rather he didn't. I'd rather he knew what a rat and scumbag Danny is, but whatever. It's not like Garland's running a party, right? It's just a news show. So it is what it is. I agree with you, though, obviously. Rosa Lux is one of the biggest historic tragedies. Yeah, I mean, Ernst Thälmann was an even bigger one, though, man. Poor Ernst Thälmann. They kept him in solitary for like 11 years and then took him out at when the war was winding down and Hitler was trying to rally his forces. He executed Ernst Thälmann, who had been in solitary for 11 years. I don't know how anybody was on board with that. Like, woohoo! We kept this heroic pro-working class, stand-up, amazing, brilliant guy in a cage for 11 years and then murdered him. We rock! Go Germany! Fucking retards. Getting sold out is sick stuff. Yeah, but that's what the Social Democrats will always do. In times of crisis, you know, the Social Democrats and the Trotskyites sound like they agree with us, right? They sound like they have the same politics when you hear their rhetoric. But every time capitalism is actually in a time of crisis where you can go towards fascism or communism, the Social Democrats and the Trotskyists side with the fascists against the communists, right? And what we're seeing now with the ACP is just what's been seen historically and repeated historically forever, which is why the Marxist-Leninist position has always been to call Social Democrats social fascists, because objectively, when the time comes to actually transform the system, they side with fascism in order to protect liberalism, which they see as the inalienable foundation of the society. The Trotskyites are a little different, but the Social Democrats don't want to revolutionize the system. They want moderate reform to the point where they'll side with fascists to avoid communists actually revolutionizing the system. Yep, see AOC and Bernie's fight oligarchy tour. LOL, shaking my head, all optics for them. Exactly. And I mean, I'm not that hard on Hassan Piker, right? I think Hassan Piker does good work. I think, obviously, I have 1,000,000,001 critiques of him, but I don't go super hard on him because he's not pure evil. But, like, he made a tweet saying, like, everybody makes fun of Hassan for not actually doing anything real, for not actually using his money to help any real political movements, right? He's not a real socialist. And yet here I am interviewing Bernie and AOC. They said I wasn't doing anything, and yet here I am with two oligarchs or two corporate puppets, two people who sheepdog radical energy into the Democratic Party. You guys were saying I wasn't doing anything productive for socialism. I interviewed Bernie. Like, oh, bro, I try to not go that hard on you. I try to not cook you and just hate you outright. And then you say shit like this. And then you're like, stop making fun of me for not doing any real socialist work. I interviewed AOC after she voted for the Iron Dome. Come on, buddy. Get with it, bro. Get with the times. The woke shit is dead, Hassan. The woke identity politics bullshit is dead. I know you're captive to your audience. But if you leave that stuff behind, and if you just start focusing on class struggle first and foremost, prioritizing the struggle of the working class, your audience will grow. You'll lose some followers at first. They'll call you a Nazi and a fascist and a class reductionist and blah, 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 right? But you'll reach a broader audience because that woke, hyper-identity politics obsessed, culture war obsessed audience of leftists is shrinking every day. It's shrinking. And it's a nice pool of people who you can pull from. I know, because I was a TikTok creator who was afraid to offend my liberal viewers for years. But eventually I got over it and I was able to reach a whole new section of people who aren't glued into these culture war politics every day. And that's what will happen for you, Hassan, if you leave this wokeism behind. Please, my friend, please. Hassan served as a gateway to you guys right after October 7th, so he serves a purpose. Exactly why I'm not that hard on him. Yes, thank you, Exodus. And that's true of a lot of people. North Star Radio has a whole video. North Star Radio, by the way, you guys should be subscribed to him. He does like drama content. He's like the Marxist-Leninist TMZ in a way, but it's not like that because he's a Marxist-Leninist and he actually has theoretical analysis. And his girlfriend is in the party, in the ACP. But this is North Star's channel. Make sure you subscribe to him. He's a great guy. 55,000 subs. And he's got a full video basically on how he started with Hassan and then made his way to Midwestern Marx. And now he's, I think, leaning more towards the ACP than anything else. So that's the purpose that Hassan serves. And it is a valuable purpose, I won't lie. But he also serves the purpose of sheepdogging people back to the Democrats, which is what me and North Star Radio have had that debate before about the role that Hassan plays and whether it's more good or more bad. I literally became ML because of you, and Hassan brought me to you. Base, let's go. Yeah, exactly. That's a similar thing with North Star Radio here. I'm going to wrap up the stream soon, but we can actually watch this. Wait. Let's find it.
Did differently than Hassan Piker was that he really focused condition in order to cause them to become the terrorists. It's pretty
dialectics, and that the material world is the foundation of all phenomena. Dialectical materialism asserts that social, political, and historical developments arise from the contradictions and conflicts inherent in the material conditions of society.
I'm no professor. I still don't really know how to completely define it. But it's quite simple, really. Oh, there's a terrorist group over there? Yeah, they didn't become terrorists for no reason. Something had to happen in their material condition in order to cause them to become the terrorists. It's pretty simple. The person who introduced me to dialectical materialism and the person who really just opened up my mind entirely to American imperialism is Eddie Liger of Midwestern Marx. Something Eddie did differently than Hassan Piker was that he really focused on American military intervention around the globe. I've always been...
So yeah, basically, Hassan brought the Marxism and I brought the Leninism, the hammer of Leninism. So yeah, that's why I don't go too hard on Hassan. That's why I always leave the door open to him. But he does push liberal Zionism and he does sheepdog people back into the Democratic Party. So, but yeah, everybody follow North Star Radio. Please do. Please do. Hassan has all the free time and money and fans you could never, ever need, but he has absolutely nothing to show for it. All he does is format culture war for some loser hipster. And he said ACP is a crypto scam and never apologized. So he said he was wrong. But leave the Hassan to ML pipeline open. Exactly. I leave the pipeline open, but I'm honest about my critiques of Hassan. I'm not going to lie about them in order to keep the pipeline open, but I'll be good faith in my critiques and also explain what I like about Hassan and what I think he does good. And, you know, he's woken a lot of people up on Palestine, too. You can't take that away from the guy. So. This is a really great show. I've learned a lot already. Thank you. Hell yeah. Glad to hear it, comrade. Appreciate it. All right, folks. I just called a customer Hassan. LOL. I need to stop fucking up on YouTube at work. That's so funny. Thank you, Hassan. I mean, that's hilarious. I'm glad that I'm able to entertain you a little bit at work, though, Jenny. I hope it's a good shift right now. Midwestern Marx on top. Hell yeah, baby. We're going to keep growing. We're going to keep building. We're going to keep winning people to Marxism. We're going to take down the bastards who created Lyme disease and ruined my childhood. Join the ACP at acp.us/join. Thank you all for being here. I am sweating my ass off, so I got to dip out. Thank you for the super chats and the memberships and things like that. I'm going to go enjoy Florida. I'm going to meet with some of the Florida chapter members, meet with some of the comrades out here. If you're one of the ACP Florida members and you want to link up, let me know. I'm only going to be here for a couple days, but yeah, should be posting some more TikToks this week though while I'm here and getting some good work done. So thank you everybody for hanging out today. Happy Wednesday and solidarity forever.
Stand tall, victims of oppression, for the tyrants fear your march. Don't cling so hard to your possession, for you have nothing if you have no rights. Let ignorance be ended, for respect makes the empires fall. Freedom is me, privilege is standard and enjoyed by one and all. So come brothers and sisters, for the struggle carries on. The international unites the world in song. So comrades, rally, for this is the time and place. The international idea unites the human race. And no one will divide us. Walls of hatred and stone. Come greet the dawn and stand by us. We'll lay together alone. In our world by exploitation, those who have taken now they must give. And love and nation, but one earth on which to live. So come brothers and sisters, for the struggle carries on. The international